Welcome to the Uplift, where we are uplifting our lives, uplifting each other, and uplifting our communities together. Thank you for joining myself, Cy Herrera, and Tessa Savala here, two women, two attorneys, doing it our way, and inviting you here each week to share in on the stories, advice, and life lessons we've picked up along our journeys that keep us uplifted, and that will hopefully do the very same thing for you. Now buckle in and let's get ready to be uplifted.
Hello, everyone. As always, I'm Tessa, and I'm joined by the ray of sunshine that is Cy.
Hi, Tessa. It's so wonderful to hear your voice.
So wonderful to hear your voice, and it's a nice sunny day that we're recording on in Austin, which has been a relief after
Yes.
lots of cloudy days this winter, which I know we are very fortunate in Austin, where we get a lot more sunshine than other parts, but still welcome relief to see the sun.
Yeah, very much so. It makes me happy.
Me too. I have been watching the new season of Queer Eye, and
Yay.
there was an episode that really hit home with me because I think it's something that I have experienced. I know Sai, you and I have talked about, and
Mhm.
I think a lot of our listeners probably have experienced too. So the episode focuses around this man who is deaf, and he teaches and coaches and is the athletic director of a deaf school in Louisiana. And he struggles with not thinking that he's not doing enough to help the kids and to help the school
Mhm.
stay sustainable. And it just resonated with me so much, like the pressures that we put on ourselves that are not being forced on us with outside forces, but we decide that we need to be doing this. And
Mhm.
the genius that is Karamo broke it down for him like, you just need to start trusting yourself, start
Mm.
trusting yourself. And I remember hearing, like, as I started my professional career, this phrase, trust the process. And I'm glad that has, I think, gone by the wayside because that's like putting a
Mm.
lot of faith in a lot of people that you have and situations that you have no
Blind
control
faith.
over. Yeah. And I'm like, yeah, let, let me blindly trust the baby boomers. That's not something that I'm going to like really be like, yeah, I'm into this. But
You
this
knew
idea of,
better.
yeah, right? But this idea of trusting yourself, I mean, imagine if you were given that advice as like a 25-year-old starting your
Mm.
career.
Mm.
So powerful.
Yeah. And how would it have been received at 25 versus now too?
That's true. I
Wow.
mean,
Mhm.
maybe we did need to like experience walking through the mud. I hate that idea though, right? Like I hate the idea that we had to do all this like trudging through slime and disgust and
Well, it's interesting though, like the paradigm you're setting up too, because it makes me feel like there's this again, it's always about in my mind it's about a mindset, it's about a perspective, it's about a philosophy,
mm-hmm,
right? And the
mm-hmm.
paradigm that's being kind of constructed here is that you either need to like have all this experience in order to then trust yourself, or you have to trust somebody else until you can gain it kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I feel like that is also like stemming from our puritanical, value set that's been forced on us through colonialism. And so in my mind, it's more so that we have to um, understand, and people do at different times of their life. That's the other thing. Like I think it's a false paradigm, right? Like we're
Mm,
setting this up as if it's true.
right.
But, I think it's probably more so true because we believe it, right? Like, if we
Oh my God,
are
so
young
true.
people and we're being told you can't trust yourself because you don't know enough yet, you're dumb, or like not dumb, but inexperienced, for example. And you just have to trust the system because older people know more than you. And I'm not I'm not saying that, there's no value in this. I believe in like, learning from our elders, of course. And I also think that, great philosophers said one of the most important principles is to know thyself.
Yep.
And learning in psychology that like identity building is, obviously such a paramount thing and just the intricacies of it all. It just it makes me reflect on my young self and think about like, did I not really know what I was doing? Or did I actually just believe some bullshit that other people told me that actually kept me from trusting
Mm.
in myself sooner and pursuing the life that I deserved sooner and pursuing a mindset that would serve me sooner.
I had the weirdest visual pop in my head while you were talking
Mm,
of like pop culture in this moment.
mm.
Remember, I don't even know the name of the horror film, but there was a horror film that was something like you stood in a dark room or a bathroom with a mirror and you repeated something 5 times, or and then
Bloody
like
Mary or something, yeah.
yes, and I'm like, it's as though we've been taught that and that we're
Mm,
supposed to expect that that's what's going to happen because we're
mm.
supposed to be trusting all this advice from other people. But in reality, I think even if we watched that kid as teenagers, we were like, yeah, no, no, that's not what happens when you stand in a dark room with a mirror.
But do you have to prove it to yourself? Or are you someone
Yeah,
that, like, trusts what other people say and, like, it actually scares you or, like, you don't believe it at all, you're a cynic, I just that's
yeah,
a funny, like, just example of it, and I just don't know why the world can't be a place where instead of, like, scaring people to do like, in my mind, what this translates to, or one of my first theories about this paradigm is that it could very well be obviously a means of manipulation, right? Like we'll get all these young
absolutely.
people to do what we want them to do by telling them that they have to trust us. And I mean, just reminds me of all the things they tell you not to follow when it comes to like con men and cult leaders. But like don't just follow
God.
people blindly. Come on now, But yet you're supposed to do it.
Right, you are
You're
supposed to actually
supposed to
follow
do
them
it in
blindly.
certain
Mhm.
yeah, people would think, yeah, you're supposed to do it on these in these circumstances, right? And so, in that regard, I just wonder, like, why can't we just set young people up on the path, like the quick, expedited path? Because I think that there obviously is some of that, like, naturally that's going to occur of like, you really don't know. So you are either going to have to trust somebody else's word, or you're going to have
Yeah,
to go try it for yourself, or you're just going to have to make a decision about it. And, that's your instinct. I mean, you're going to have to gain some experience, obviously. If you don't have
right.
experience, you have to gain it. But at the same time, I wish that we could just set society up in a way where we could essentially like, get people to the path that we're getting to now sooner. And I think that it's somewhat happening, but the
Yeah.
distractions are very strong, right? So like I feel like there's been a democratization of information through the internet and through, all of this information sharing. But you see the rise of misinformation, and to me, that just
Mhm.
shows that, like, information is super powerful, obviously, and that people, they can't just have, like, untapped or just, like, have this, like, unfettered access to, just information on tap that's true and relevant and valid and legitimate, right? Because that would be too powerful in a way. And so I just wish that like for this specifically, in regards to getting people into like, for example, an abundance mindset, into a mindset about, like wellness over the appearance of wealth. Like all of these
Mhm.
different things that just really like enrich people's life and bring them closer to enlightenment or whatever you want to call it, right? Like just a true sense of self. I just wish that that was the system that we were encouraging, that that is what we were, like, building people into, as opposed to building them into, like, in my calculation of this, a lot of it is, a manipulation into, like, we want you to serve our purposes, not serve your purposes, right? And I don't know how in the world we get there, but that's my first instinct is that, like, there are reasons that this is happening, and there are reasons that it could be very different. There are possibilities for it to be very different, but we're choosing this other way because it serves certain interests at the end of the day.
And I mean, how troubling for a culture that our culture is choosing
Mm,
advice for people that does not uplift them, but intentionally holds them down. I mean, that is
exactly.
just, um, I don't know. Oh my Thor, it's just too much to handle, right? Like
It's
this idea
repulsive,
that
yeah.
that's the advice that I know I was given, and I'm certain other people are too, and I think we're still giving.
Oh,
But I
yeah.
love the idea that we are rebelling and that Karama is showing us how to rebel and that
Yes.
trusting ourselves is
Yes.
another act of rebellion that we could just embrace to like change the world, especially in our culture, so that we are innately choosing to lift people up because holding them down is just it's just not cool. I mean, there's lots of other horrible words I would like to use, but dude, not cool.
No, I mean, it's oppressive in my mind, and also, it reminds me of the fact, like, we're talking about one example of this, but we see this manifest, this societal manipulation manifesting over and over again, and if you think about it in different examples, it might be more clear to you as an individual of, like, for example, we give some people bad advice around relationships or, let's say in our tradition and habit of society, we have, given guidance that is manipulative for one
Mhm.
sex, right? To oppress
Oh, yeah.
them in relationships, and that's called patriarchy, right? And so
Mhm.
that's just another example of how this manifests, where we tell young girls like this is how you're supposed to act in a relationship, and we don't teach maybe men or anybody about like consent, for example, right? Or all of these different things that really like lead to disastrous results, right? Where folks are just like suffering in these intimate partner relationships. And that's not fair to anybody. And it actually is a disservice to society overall. I mean, it's atrocious to think about. How many people suffer physically, mentally, verbally, sexual assaults, and all different types of violence. But if you just care about like society as a whole, you would know that like this is not good for society. This what's, traumatizes, children and people and leads to folks not having homes and not having stability, not having mental health, not having physical health. I mean, all of these things actually like hurt our society as a whole. We're all interconnected is my point, right? You can't just think that this is one person's problem. And the messaging that we're giving people in this example, just like yours, is it's manipulative, you know, truly, we're grooming people. We're literally grooming children, to believe that this is what they deserve, that this is how things are supposed to be, that this is how that they should expect to be treated, and that, that's just life. And so, again, mindset rules. The mindset and the perspective and your set of beliefs of what should and shouldn't be literally changes the world. It would change our society entirely if we all, really committed, um, to basically teaching the next generation that this is not okay, and this is what's good, and this is what you deserve, right? I mean, that would actually be groundbreaking.
And I mean, think about it, it's not just the patriarchy, it is the heteronormative viewpoint of so many people in this country, right? Like
Mhm,
little
mhm,
girls taught that the only thing in the world is to have a boyfriend. Little
mm,
little kids being taught that love is only found in one way.
mhm.
And it's just
Okay.
layers upon layers that then build,
The
right?
Disney
Like it's
princess.
yeah. And it is, you have to get married by a certain point in time. It is you should have this many children. It is, there should be a power dynamic in every relationship or
Mm, mhm.
it's just
Gender norms.
no. Oh, the worst. The
Yes.
worst.
All of that. I mean, that's what I'm saying is like none of us are immune to this. I don't know anybody that possibly could be listening right now that has not been touched by this. I mean, and if you have, please let us know how and how
Yes,
we
and
can
how
do
did you
more of what you're
survive?
doing. Yes.
Yeah. What advice were you given that actually, like, shielded you from this chaos?
Yes, yes, because it's everywhere, right? And we've talked about it before and it's so pervasive, right? It's not even just your tribe, your circle, your people that you grew up with, your community, your city, it's your country. And now it's your media, your social media, your phone in front of you. That's all the time. The TV, I mean, literally everywhere, it's reinforced over and over again. And I know sometimes we talk about like the power of TV, and I've talked about it personally, how it's had an impact on my like mindset, and truly like my like shaping of like what I thought this is or what I thought this, would should look like. And now they're showing, studies of how they're just confirming that it's very true that people are very powerfully impacted, by the imagery, by the stories that we share. I mean, it makes me really sad that like we used to have a tradition, especially in indigenous cultures, but I think probably in every culture, around storytelling that was so sacred
Yeah.
and so special and so, rich and rich with culture and passing along ancestral knowledge, like just so much richness there. And now it's kind of gone way to this replacement, which is the media, because the media, and when I say media, I also mean like, TV stories, movies, all of that, telling us stories that are engaging, that are entertaining, right? But they can
That
never
are
really
uplifting.
replace yeah, they could be all of those things. And they are shaping our mindset, they're shaping our perspective of the world. And most of all, that the thing that just pains me is that they're also, in a way, they've replaced this cultural ancestral knowledge, and tradition, where we were passing along so much of our history and so much of
Yeah.
our just knowledge. That's kind of, it's been like, that spot has been taken up by this other thing, which is very entertaining. I mean, I love I love the full, like, movie experience, all of the amazing effects, all of the things, but there's something missing, and I don't know how we get it back. But it feels like, that need and want for storytelling has been replaced with something that is lesser, even if the visual effects are amazing.
Yes, I think from my life that I think really proves your point is when I was growing up and we were in Sweden, there were
Mhm.
three government-owned channels on the television, and those
Mm.
and this was like, 80s, right? This isn't like a long
Mhm.
time ago in my head. Three government-owned television stations, and the programming was from like say 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. So
Mm.
not all day,
Mhm.
not every day,
Right.
and it really forced, conversations. And I love those times because I learned things from my aunts and my uncles and my
Mm.
cousins and my grandparents.
Mhm.
But since, we have 24/7 now access to it, and we don't have
It's not communal now.
it's not, and we're not learning,
Everything's individual. Mhm.
and it's been replaced. I think our perhaps cultural identifiers that we used to tell through storytelling got replaced by kind of what media was telling people to believe as opposed to what you actually learned through your ancestors. And
Mhm.
some of it's good, right? Like, I mean, obviously,
Sure.
Grandma's giving great advice, but
Yes.
also potentially an outlier because there's a lot of, you know, not so great stuff. I was picked up, started reading a book, and I was so frustrated at the beginning because there was a lot of toxic masculinity. I'm like,
Mm.
how did this get recommended by the source that I found it recommended from one? And I'm like,
Mm.
how much do I have to put up with this toxic masculinity to get through to the story? Luckily, this book and the toxic masculinity ended after very short chapter, but I was
Okay.
like, oh, this is good. But I recently started a book club with a friend from high school, and just she and I, so I don't know if we really call it a book club, but the first book that she recommended,
It's an
it was,
exclusive book club.
yeah, and it was like this, like maybe Pulitzer winner. Lots of people recommended this book, and it was like
Mm.
400 pages of toxic masculinity,
Wow.
and I'm just like,
Oh, wow.
how are women recommending
Really?
this book to each other? Like it was supposed to be
Interesting.
the story about women overcoming and all this kind of stuff. I was like, wow, that's a lot of repression. My I am a person who makes side notes in books, and it was like a lot of me using a lot of words that I don't want to repeat on this podcast in my margins, going, wow, too much. But I think to prove your point, that's really where we've gotten to, right? Like
Yeah.
the empowerment that I think we used to find and the uplift we used to find from our family and our ancestors has been replaced by this imagery that is so, I'm going to go puritanical. It's oppressive. It's
Mhm.
part of the patriarchy because, it was developed when men were in charge of everything. And
Yep.
don't get me wrong, they still are to a great extent, but it has gotten slightly better. But
Mhm.
wow, we need to we need more rebellion. We need more people who trust in themselves and believe in themselves and realize that the way it's always been is not the way it has to be because seriously, F that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have, yeah, to your point, we have some, shining examples that keep us really excited for the hope. of the future. And I mean, the fact that so many young people are being raised with an ability to self-produce, I think is
Yeah.
major. It's so major because
Mhm.
now, they get to express themselves. But, at the end of the day, if you're internalizing this oppression, and just repeating it, like you said in some of these books, I feel like that's very common, and it's intentional that you get these results. And so we really have to prioritize exactly what we were talking about before. Like, how do we get folks to trust themselves at younger and younger ages, right? Like, how do we encourage people to like get on this mindset journey sooner, and more completely, and actually have the resources that they need and the support that they need, to live and kind of like live in their authenticity, live in their truth, live in what's real for them, live in what is really like, kind of their, I don't know, their I want to say their real life, but that doesn't make sense entirely. I say that because I feel like there's just so much fakeness going on, I guess.
Yeah. And
And
how
there's
do
so much
we
like building fake identities, false identities, especially
Yeah.
online.
Oh, yeah. Like, I'm thinking about that. I don't know if this is appropriate phrasing, so I'm offering my apology at the outset. The mommy blogger who was in the news for having, like, locked up one of her kids and starved them
Oh
while she was
Lord.
trying to blog about how the
How
perfect way to
wonderful of a mom
parent.
she is. Oh
Yeah,
gosh.
and I mean, now the woman's in jail. So I'm like, that type
Perfect.
of
Mhm.
what we see as opposed to what
Is
we
not what you
actually
get.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, what you
and
see is
how
not what you get.
and I also kind of feel like, do we have an obligation while we're trying to rebel against all this stuff that's out there to stop our friends and stop our colleagues when they
Mm,
start verbalizing the oppression and internalizing it, right? Like,
mm,
do we need to stop them and say, hey, just trust yourself, you're doing great work, or trust yourself and trust what you feel about, say, this person in this
yeah,
relationship or the career path or whatever it might be.
yeah. Well, we're so often drawn out, right? Like whenever
Hmm.
there's a question in our mind or just an insecurity, we're often, I guess we're often programmed in a way, we're socialized in a way to look outside of us for external affirmations, right? To look for external like support of what we think it might be right or wrong. And not to say that's entirely bad, that's why we always say surround yourself with people that you really trust and that want you to win. They want you to do
Right?
well and to be happy and to be healthy, right? Because of course that's normal human behavior. But now with just so much access to so many people's opinions, right? People who do not know you, people who don't care about you, some people who are actively trying to destroy you to lift themselves up in a very unhealthy way.
Ugh, yeah.
We can get really, really caught in this trap of, seeking external affirmation and then really feeling worse about ourselves and doubting ourselves even more and completely ignoring our instincts and what we think is right because, in sacrifice to this like greater knowledge. And I even heard something really interesting called I think it was techno chauvinism. I don't know if we talked about that before, but it was just this idea that like we're starting now, and in addition to giving away our opinions and our like power of instinct to other people, we're now doing the same thing with machines and with machine learning and with AI and with technology overall. And this makes sense, right? Like if you don't know an answer, what
Yep.
do? You Google it, right?
Yep.
And so that, I mean, we're literally teaching a whole generation, and not even a generation. I mean, from millennials on, like this is our life. This is what we do now. We check ourselves. We fact check, the fact check, and we're fact checking with an imperfect source. And that's
Oh,
that's what's really
absolutely.
really hard about it, because it's like you want to believe that you know how to research, right? You want to believe that you have this like ultimate source of knowledge, which is a beautiful idea. Just saying that out loud is like, ooh, ultimate source of knowledge. That sounds like a Greek like fable or whatever. But it's just not that, unfortunately. I mean, it's a great, we have wonderful sources, obviously. We are in the age of information. However, we're getting to a place where we don't know what's real and what's not. we're getting into a place where we don't know, what's valid and what's not. I just had to do a slew of CLEs because it's my birthday month, and so I had to do them all in one day.
Oh, yep, been there. Hmm.
And so I did all of my CLEs, and one of them was on AI, and it was really interesting because I've been thinking, I'm like, I'm not a traditional attorney, so I'm not in the courtroom every day or doing litigation like some people might think attorneys always do. And I wonder sometimes, I'm like, wow, what is happening with AI and attorneys? Like, I've really been thinking about this, like, what's going on with like briefs and just like filings, and how much are people starting to lean on AI this early? And apparently a lot because
Yes.
people have been, getting briefs written by AI and presenting them to court and getting thousands of dollars in sanctions when AI and backed by Google citations are being generated that are truly, literally false, as in they never happened. Like, these court cases have never
Yep.
happened, they did not exist. And these robots, these AI learning machines, whatever you want to call them, this tech is literally generating falseness. I mean, it's just literally generating things that do not exist, and we're trusting it so much. That's my point. Is like, we're talking about trust yourself. We are giving a lot of our trust out. We are literally, just sacrificing our trust to other sources. A lot of them are people who we don't actually know, who don't know us, who don't care about us or our well-being. And now, even farther, we're giving our trust over to, literal machines that are not even human beings anymore. And that, unfortunately, we cannot trust, obviously, to have our best interest, but also just to be true. So that just strikes me as being like, wow, we really need to take stock of who we're giving our trust to, and think about the value again of turning that back around and trusting ourselves more.
My I was raised with a Swedish mom, obviously, as we have heard me say on repeat. And she is very much question authority, question everything, which is great for
Mhm.
my upbringing. But to your point about AI in the legal field, as somebody who owns their own business as a lawyer, the number of AI sales pitches I get via email on a
Oh
daily
God.
basis to
Oh
like buy their
God.
software, it's a
Yes.
dozen a day, right? Different companies who have different ideas. And I'm like, I'm not trusting you because I just saw a commercial recently that was a I don't want to name the product, but it was a product that you talk to and then it gives you answers
Mhm.
back.
Mhm.
Well, it showed a child doing their homework and asking for what year did something happen, and the product replied back with a date, and I'm like, wait, nobody has to cite sources anymore. And now you're
Right.
telling me that there's proof that they cite false sources. If they're telling
Right.
that to lawyers and pleadings,
Right.
could you
Yes.
imagine what they're like?
I
What are they
cannot.
making
Oh
up for
my
kids?
God. Oh God. Yeah. And then people are literally like, what, they're gonna truly believe this, because I mean, even now it's challenging me to be like, oh, should I be trusting even just the little things that you ask to Google every day, right? It's just
Yep.
like, how much are we trusting this thing? And I mean, how much can we really rely on it for our work? And we really, I think that one thing that was interesting about this CLE is that this person was like, look, there are a bunch of amazing tools online. And he started, like, I mean, in the documents, he actually listed them all out, gave us links to them, all of this good stuff. And he's like, here are some actual reputable sources that you can rely on. And I'm like, wow, this is incredibly valuable. As simple as it seems, it's just like we are in an ocean of information and we have no idea really. It all looks the same. It all looks the
Yeah.
same as far as what is good, what is not, what is real, what is not. And so you're right. Like, that's the other thing that really dawned on me is like, if this is this hard for lawyers,
Yeah.
how hard is it for everybody else? And so trusting yourself, I think, is really hard nowadays. I think it's extra challenging if I'm gonna be, like, if I'm gonna share like my perception of this, just really trying to put myself in the shoes of people who especially grew up in the age of the internet, like never knew anything without it. I mean, I was just telling my daughter the other day, like, it's just funny watching her reaction around, like, we didn't have cell phones when we were your age. And she's just like, what?
What?
The awe and disgust
Um,
slightly. Just,
Sometimes people made phone calls and you would hope to receive them.
yes, yeah. You didn't
What?
even know who called you.
Yeah.
Before we even had answering machine. I mean, answering machines were a luxury, right? So
Yep. Hmm.
you didn't know who was calling when you went to answer the phone.
Oh,
What?
shocking.
That's barbaric.
So are.
And so I just think about this, these all of these generations that are in this age. And I wonder just like what trusting yourself looks like now versus then. Like, how much more challenging is it? And what does it mean, actually? Like, what does it actually
Yeah.
mean to trust yourself? Because, one thing that I think people do is they go around and they ask everybody when they're trying to make a hard decision, maybe like what their opinion is. But now you'll notice a lot of people, as we say, we do our research. And what that looks
Yep.
like for everyone is very different. And the sources
Hmm.
that everyone uses are very different. I'm a YouTube girl, but just my partner always says, well, they can't put it on there if it's not true as a joke. Because of course you can put anything on there if you want to, because we're all
Leave it to Jess
self-publishing,
to
right?
like really
I
nail it
know.
for us.
Just nailed it. And so we always say that to remind ourselves, like, okay, if it's too good to be true, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I mean, you really have to vet things out and probably try them to a certain extent on your own, going back to our conversation about like youth and experience, right? And I like to just, I like to cross reference. I think that's like a good old school research technique of like, if something sounds ridiculous or amazing or whatever, even if it's mundane, it's always good to have multiple sources. And I think that's
Oh,
where we
yeah.
need to get to. I think we need to get to that place where people, I mean, it's kind of unfortunate, but because I don't really particularly love research like you might. But
I do
some
love
people,
research.
I
You
wish
nailed
that
it.
was
Hmm.
my thing. Yeah, but a lot of people don't, and I think that's why we're in this position where a lot of people hear things. I mean, we talk about the phenomenon of headline readers, right? Like we
Yep.
just like, and everybody knows it, like clickbait headlines, like that's a thing. And so my point being is I think that is part of the answer is we have to get to a place where we are a little like we have to become a little skilled as researchers. And we have to know that like just because you heard it once doesn't make it true. We have to
Yep.
cross reference. We need to have sources that are online, offline, in real life, maybe people with actual experience, books, God forbid, like different things that could be great resources. Like we have to learn how to be better researchers, but also the reason I'm saying this is because I want to get to like how do we really help people who feel maybe really insecure, inexperienced in whatever thing that they're facing in life. How do we get them to feel more empowered and embodied in their intuition? How do we help them step into that trust of themselves and feel really confident about it? I think that it's probably a lifelong kind of journey that will have all kinds of different experiences with it. But I'm so interested in getting people there sooner because when you get there sooner you feel you get to enjoy life more, I think, overall. So how do we get them there sooner is my thought.
And I think it's also an element of, I said, maybe confidence. I don't know if that's necessarily the right word, but right, if it's you doing a lot of things to say advance a relationship or advance yourself or advance your career,
Mm-hmm.
how do you have the trust in knowing that what you're doing is
Hmm.
the good and right thing for you and what your goals are?
Mm-hmm.
And can you trust yourself without a modicum of confidence in yourself, right? Do they go hand in
Mm,
hand? Can they be
mm,
separated? Are they
mm.
linked?
It's a good question. I mean, I think, they say seeing is believing, but I say doing is believing. And so when you do things and then you realize, like, oh, it's just like getting in water. Somebody can tell you, like, this water is perfect. It's a great
Right.
temperature. So,
Hmm.
you get in and you're like, this water's cold as hell. Like, you just
Yeah.
straight lied to me. But, but you don't know some things until you do them, right? And
Right.
that's the tricky part. But at the end of the day, I guess I guess where I really feel we have to get folks in general is to do some of that kind of I'm trying to find a different phrase than like doing, this work that people always talk about. But, when you really know yourself and you explore yourself, and you turn inward first, right? Before, like, I think as young people, it's psychological and it's like biological. The first thing we do is start looking, in our pubescent years, like we start looking around at our peers, right? Like the peer
Yep.
pressure is a whole thing, right? That we experience as humans. So it's a
Yep.
very, very natural. But my point is like the sooner we can get people to take that focus and then come back and just face it inward and start doing
Yeah.
anything to really like know yourself, like truly know what makes you happy, what makes you feel relaxed, what makes you feel at peace, what makes you feel angry, what makes you feel outraged, what makes you feel offended, what makes you feel productive, what makes you feel good, I mean all of these words um come from the idea of like for me like you don't know what you want until you know who you are.
Yeah. And to go touching back on something you said earlier, it is also not comparison, right? It is not what you see
Exactly.
that people
Exactly.
want to achieve or are
Right.
fearful of or need to get to relaxation or success, how they define it, or hell, how you define success for yourself is for you. And I am now giving you permission to define it all for yourself, right? It is not what society thinks. It is not what your parents think. It is not what your best friend
Mhm.
thinks. It's not what your partners think. It is what
Right.
you need for you.
Yes. And what truly brings you, joy. Like again, I think
Yeah.
that should be the measure. When people talk about success, I'm gonna be honest, like I'm starting to feel cringy about the word success just because
I know
it's
it's
like
hard, right?
it's hard because I'm like, of course, like I do want people to be successful, but I mean, I feel like that word is so wrapped up in trauma for me, where it's like success is this idea that society has mostly of like
Hmm.
when you are worthy, when you are a worthy contributor of society. Like that's what
Hmm.
success means to me. And I know it's hard because I want to like divorce it from this other word success, like as a personal success, right? Like this is what I want to achieve and it feels good when I achieve it for me because I set that goal and that's what I wanted and that's what brings me joy, like truly, right? And it can be about work, it can be about, career, it can be about, hobby, it can be about love and passion, it could be about anything in the world. But my point being is like in this country, in my trauma, it's so wrapped up in so many things. It's entangled in so many things. So I like to just change the narrative of really instead of thinking about what brings me, success, if that's, it presumes that that's the goal. For me, success is defined as something else and it's the new measure. It's I don't even think about success anymore. I think more about like what brings me what's going to or what does bring me joy, what brings me pleasure, what brings me like true, just sense of peace, because all of those things are what I value in my human experience is like having more time where I just feel at peace. That's wonderful. But
Absolutely.
when I hear the word success, it makes me like a little anxious. And it
I
makes
have to
me
say,
think like I gotta try to do other things.
I, I have gotten to the same point. I saw a
Hmm.
headline this week in the Wall Street Journal, which, business leading tends to be slightly conservative.
Hmm.
And its headline was "The New Closet, $1 million closet, the new standard." I'm like, for whom? And then all that flashed in my
The
mind was
new standard.
yeah. And I'm like, this is
Oh,
American Psycho level stuff, right? Like
ugh, yeah,
Patrick Bateman has
absolutely.
come to life and this is what's happening. And I'm like,
See, the movie reference makes it like it makes it all
right?
relatable too. It's just funny because it actually is the thing that ties us together. Like it truly is
Hmm.
something that we can all relate to. That like if you think about how big our country is. It's freaking huge. Like we
Yeah.
are big, like I mean just geographically like
Yeah.
widespread, huge country, right? And we're all over the place and people are, they're congregating in different ways, like big cities and the rural areas and suburban areas, etc. Um, but the only thing that we really share, if you really think about it, the only thing that we really share between all of these people all over the country and now more so all over the world even is the media
Yeah.
that we consume, the stories that we consume, the Hollywood movies, the music videos, I mean, literally, this is the stuff that we share where I could go to New York right now and I could strike up a conversation with people and we could start talking about pop culture like nothing.
Yeah.
And I don't live there, like that's
Yeah.
bizarre in a lot of ways, but it's a very powerful like social psychological phenomenon that we have to like really understand that this is a real thing. But to your point, in regards to the standards, I love when people just say it out loud because then I can really like see what they're saying. But like when people are telling you something, it's just we have to be hyper vigilant about the fact that like people are trying to sell you something. That's the other thing. Like you
Hmm.
talked about your mom having a healthy cynicism for things. I think that's one of the like it really is one of the most important things to develop in my mind.
Yeah.
Like just when I talk about it all the time with our daughter, we're like, yeah, see, she's questioning everything. That's good. Like that's
That
what we
is
want her
good.
to do because there's so much of people just literally trying to get your money and they don't care if
Yeah.
they devastate your identity, your wellness journey. They don't care if they
Your
decimate
culture.
your psycho, like literally your psyche, your culture, your history, your like they do not give two flying nothings. Like they do not care. They are out of cares. They want your money. And so just
And
thinking about this
assimilation
closet.
to make you
Oh
like
Lord.
give them more money later.
Conform now
Yeah.
because we have a system going where everyone gives us the money. And it's just really true. I've been looking a lot about I spent my morning looking at YouTube videos about what it's like to live in Mexico again. And it was
I love
really
it.
interesting to see like people telling about their experience and saying something like outright like, you know, it's different. They're like, I'm living here in like Mexico City, for example, and they're like, I love my life and it's very different than the US life. She was like, and the biggest difference is I don't own a bunch of stuff. She's like, and I'm not trying to.
Yeah.
She's like, I
Yeah.
am not trying. She's like, I rent this apartment. It's wonderful. I'm this many steps from the, from these shops and this wonderful food and all of these things. And she's like, I have my dog and like, just like simple stuff. And she's like, and I mean, she was talking about money too, which was wonderful, but she was like, I have, $500,000 in the bank and I'm retired. And she's, I don't know, maybe in her early 40s or whatever. And she's just like, this is my life now. I don't have to worry about money. And I'm not trying to buy a bunch of things to look good to other people. She's like, I actually know my neighbors. They know me. They care about me. I care about them. She's like, this is my life. And it's not the same. So, like, it just made me think about how success is redefined, completely redefined, kind of
Yeah.
put on its head, and how we can all do that. We don't have to move to Mexico, but we might. But we don't have to change our mindset. That's the most powerful thing is you can change your mindset wherever you are.
I heard somebody describe Americans recently as all Americans talk about is their
Their jobs,
job,
their
their
jobs, their
house,
money, their
their
cars.
their cars, their partners, and like that was it. And I'm like,
Those are, we're shallow as
that's messed
fuck.
up. Yeah. Like,
We're just
where is
shallow.
the happiness? Where is the joy? How do they find pleasure in life?
Oh, it cracks me up because, it's another thing that like I've just noticed like I'm getting like really like what's the word? Like I can't think of the word exactly, but like disillusioned, I guess is the word. Because yeah, and so many people are like and that's why a lot of people are moving because they do all the right things. They go and get the degrees, they go and stay in school, they get the straight A's, they do all the things they're supposed to do. They get the job, they get the cars, they get the house, they get the family, like they literally are playing by the playbook and then what? and then they look up and they kind of feel a little, empty. There's something's missing, And I always say that part is I think, the community aspect that we've lost. And I find myself drawn to like building culture and community where I am more and more. Um, but it's just interesting how hard it is, I guess. I just like that I reflect on that. Like it shouldn't be this hard. And I'm good at making friends. I can make friends all day. And I got a lot of friends. But at the same time, it's really community building is a whole different thing. And the reason is because when you have a community, you have like all of these cultures and you like all
And
of this
shared
culture, like
values
shared
and
values. Yes, it's
purpose.
exactly.
But
And
you
it's
don't
like that
necessarily have to
part's
be best
missing.
friends with each other, right?
Exactly. You
But it's
don't.
like this
And that's all that we
overarching
have.
thing. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like knowing that you are amongst your people, like just instantly. Like it's just you have a baseline understanding, like you said, you have these shared values. I think that's the most important thing. And it's the thing that's been irking me the most is when I think about myself in the United States, I really just feel like maybe I don't belong here because I do not have shared values with
Welcome to the club.
and that it's hard, right? It's hard because
It
this is all
is.
I've ever
Hmm.
known. I don't feel connected to a lot of other cultures or places because, my family has been here for generations. And so it's really a hard thing to grapple with. But at the same time, what I've noticed is that I've found so many other people yearning for the same thing
Yeah.
and like wanting to build that here. And I don't know that it's possible, frankly. I mean, I'm trying. I'm trying my best. Um, but there's also like having to live and having to survive this place that is, it just I don't know how else to say except I think it's just very expensive to live here. I was talking to a friend of mine who grew up in Mexico and he was just talking about how it's so different in terms of like I don't know how to say this. The value of money is different in that like you can be a person who has a lot of financial wealth and you can be a person who is just kind of like a worker, a laborer, like just like making money to survive kind of thing. And he's like, but in Mexico, like you still enjoy life regardless, right?
Same in Sweden. Same in
and
Belgium.
that's
Yep.
and that's the part where I'm like, what is wrong with us? Like in this
Yep.
country, like, and I would be fine with that because I come from a Rust Belt town, all kinds of like blue collar workers, like that's who we are. And we have a good time, don't get me wrong, like we do. But at the same time, it's like it's become more and more and more and more cutthroat as hell in this country
Yeah.
where it's like you're either a have or a have not. And it's like, and we can talk
Ugh.
about it in terms of all of the articles, the income inequality, like people talk about it at this high level, like it's some kind of philosophical thing where it's like, oh, people are just making too little and you're making too much. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the fact that like the literal quality of life is ridiculous in terms of inequality, where it's like people are dying because they're poor. I mean, and
Yep.
in terms of like literally, like they don't get the healthcare that they need, the preventative healthcare that they need. They're losing years of life because they just literally don't have decent wages, they don't have money, they don't have wealth. Okay. In other countries, it's like, there are just some baselines that I just respect the fact that, like, there's again a shared value system of
Hmm.
people should be taking care of people to a certain extent. That's the whole freaking purpose of society in my mind, right? So I don't understand us. I don't get why we have to see people suffering in order for us to feel good about our success. Sorry, the word success obviously triggered a lot for me.
I have this fascination, maybe slight addiction to
Mhm.
Instagram accounts that compare grocery store products and
Mm,
prices in the United States
I
compared to
yep,
European countries.
I've just seen
And,
that too.
you know,
And it's
I'm like,
astounding.
it is so astounding. And the ingredients that are included and the stuff that
Mm,
we in the United States put in food for preservative
why?
standpoints that are just like,
Why?
you know, let's just say think there's enough science to
Poison.
say physiologically damaging. Yeah, oh, yeah. I was trying to be
I'll say
uh,
it.
diplomatic about it, but you are correct. But I'm like, it's like it is not just like healthcare as people think about it. It is though we have
Mhm.
not we have not created the lifestyle to allow people to survive in a way that is just like nourishing themselves and their souls,
Yes,
because
yes.
that is not something that is exalted or has not been exalted in the US. I mean, I
It's so
remember
environmental,
6-year-old,
yes.
yeah, I remember 6-year-old me telling my parents, why did you bring me to this country? And granted, I was, way over
What are you
independent as a kid.
doing?
Yeah.
It's
And I'm
like
like,
the choices.
yeah,
I
and
love
it was
it.
probably because my younger brother was like, "You need to be more American and speak English." I'm just like, "What? Who are you? No." But it's that like it's the need for assimilation in America. It is the assumption that the American way is the
Mhm.
correct way and the only way, or
Yes.
as you point out, that how we govern in our contract. I mean, as I understand philosophically, we all enter into these civilizations under a social contract. But in
Yes.
the United States, our social contract sees that let's figure out how do we make this kind of a inverted triangle. So the people with the fewest number of people have the greatest amount of wealth
Yes.
and the greatest access to stuff, and the greatest number of people get the least. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
huh?
And they
What?
get they get the lie of the American dream. I mean, that's what they get. And the manipulation of work or die. I mean, that's really like work yourself to death or die now. Like that those are our choices. It's twisted is all I'm gonna
None
say.
of the above would be the answer to that question.
Absolutely, absolutely. And taking it back to an uplifted version of this. Um,
Yes.
I do think that, the biggest thing that is really holding us back is the lie, right? Like the perception, the mindset that's been imposed on us. And the lucky thing for us is that we all have the power to change that.
We
Even if we
do.
never move to any other place in the world, even if we work in the same job for the rest of our lives, like no matter what, like the one thing that we have power over is our mindset. And
Yep.
I think that is the most beautiful thing because it literally shifts your existence. It really does. Like even like again, even if nothing else changes circumstantially, like just changing your mindset actually changes the way that you perceive and enjoy life.
Isn't that just like the power that we hold in ourselves?
Mhm.
So, like, it's like, wow, this is our escape. This is how we do it. This is our form of rebellion. Rebellion just by believing in ourselves. Like, wow, that's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
And knowing that you're, worthy of the life that you really want. And when I say want, I don't mean you want it because you're told you want it, but that you've explored, inwardly and you understand what really brings you joy and you're pursuing it despite anybody else's script of who you should or should not be.
Yes.
Right? Like this movie is yours. We don't need any suggested scripts. Like we are annoyed at people giving us their suggested scripts. We can reject them immediately without sight unseen type of situation. Like we don't need a director. We don't need a manager. We don't need extras in our life if we don't want them. We
Yep.
can summon them if we choose. We can have the lives that we want to construct, but we have to trust that we have this power, and that's really the thing is in my mind so much of this is a manipulation, the misleading information, the misinformation, the straight out lies, the grooming, all of this socialization in so many ways, in so many instances, is truly a way to manipulate folks into forgetting and not acknowledging and never knowing their own true power.
Yeah. And we have it. And we have
Hmm.
to use it. And we have to, whatever words you need to make it something that you want to do as often as you can and you feel strong enough to do. It is that, what was that that Gladwell idea, like 10,000 attempts makes it, a habit. Let's make it a habit
Mm,
that we trust ourselves, that
mm,
we are smart, capable people who can take in information, process what we want, know what we like, know what we want for ourselves, and know that it is okay to be happy. It is okay to choose to be happy. It is okay to see the good in things. And life is just not suffering.
Yes, absolutely. Life is La vida es un carnaval is the thing that always sticks out for
Yes.
me. There's so many great examples in music, but I mean, it just shows that like what you're, what you surround yourself with. When we talk about surrounding yourself with positive people, I mean, we've talked about it with social media, like curating your social media to be positive instead of negative and draining and life taking. It could be life giving. Same thing with music. Same thing with movies. I mean, I've started watching movies where I'm like, no, and I've never done that before. I've always like, if I'm watching a movie, like I already started it. I'm gonna watch it, right?
Isn't that empowering though to know that
Yes,
you,
I'm like, oh, I'm in control.
yeah, yep,
And so, like you truly can curate your life. It's like a museum. And, these beautiful walls, I mean, you only have so much space and you only have so much space in your mind. And so and in your life, and you have to choose like who are you letting in? You have a max capacity of however many people you can handle in your life. Maybe it's 100 people or maybe it's 25 or maybe it's 5. But however many people fit in your gallery, like these are the people that you allow, these are the thoughts that you allow, these are the influences you allow. I mean, it truly is. It's all yours. You can do what you want. And the thing that makes me saddest is when people feel helpless and they feel like they have to do things because somebody else. And it really kind of, I mean, it's so fast. I think this is why I studied psychology. It's just fascinating to me. This is why I get so into these cult shows because I'm like, it is amazing to me that somebody convinced somebody else you do this to serve me, like that is just fascinating to me. And especially when people are doing it, not willingly, but like not under the coercion of like physical violence or, things that
right.
are like obviously would be really hard to overcome. Not that psychological violence is not hard to overcome. It's just fascinating to me to see how people end up giving their power because the truth is like nobody takes your power.
You
You
give it
have to
up.
give it. You have to give it up, but, like, I think that's one of the scary things is when you're young, you don't know it. You don't know how
Yeah.
much power you have. You don't know that you have choices. You don't know that you have literally all of the options in the world, that you can do whatever you want to do or not do whatever you don't want to do. I mean, you just don't know that because you've been told all the way leading up to adulthood, like, this is what we do, this is what we don't do, this is how this should look. I mean, you're already socialized and groomed at that point. And so a lot of it is unlearning, right?
Yes.
And so what I would say, like just thinking about our research conversation too, is like, just because people told you some stuff, it doesn't mean it's all bad. It doesn't mean it's all good. It
Right.
doesn't mean it's all right or that it's all wrong. I think we should all have a healthy cynicism of probably some of the stuff is right and correct for me, and probably some
Yep.
of the stuff is not. And going into that in a healthy mindset of saying, like, I'm just gonna actually do my research and using it as an experiment to say, like, here's my theory based on what I already know in the world and what I've been told and understand. This is my theory. Let me go and test this theory. Let me go find other sources to influence my theory. And then, like, literally, you can choose for yourself. That's the wonderful thing about life. Everyone has their own. And again, they have the
Yeah.
power to do what they want with it.
And I would like to clarify that this advice could come from people that you love. It could come from
Oh,
people that
yeah,
you trust. It
often
could come
does.
from people who have a lot of information, but it doesn't mean it's right for you. It's their
Exactly.
experience. And you are
Exactly. And it might have been
unique
right for
and you are
them.
lovely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it could have worked out lovely for them.
Yep.
But you are unique. You need different things. You need what you need, not what anyone else is telling you you need, not what society is telling you you need. And you can do it. Like I when I was studying for the bar in San Francisco, the best I guess they were lecturer who was at the bar review
Mm.
said these words: "Don't freak out. You can do it. Like you have the base knowledge. You can do it." I think it's like a great life lesson, right? Like you can do it. You know what is right. You know what is wrong. You know how you want to be treated. You know what you like. Just listen to yourself and trust yourself and know that you are doing what you need to do. And if you don't think you are doing what you need to do, you know, research yourself too, right? Like check it out because my guess is you probably are doing quite a bit and you're probably doing a lot and you just need to trust yourself that you're doing it.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
we're here to trust you. If nobody else is there to support you and uplift you and trust you, count on us.
100%. 100%. And thank you for always being that person for me, Tessa. If y'all don't have a Tessa in your life, tune in as often as you can until you find one. And we'll
And
keep
we are,
bringing you all the uplift we can.
yes, we will. We will not stop because this is our, rebellion of, I don't know, the individual, of kindness, of trusting in ourselves, of just making the world a better place for ourselves and the people come after us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tessa, for this wonderful conversation as always. I'm feeling so much better about my Sunday, and I hope y'all are too. And we'll see you next time. Stay uplifted.